Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel. I'm really hesitant about uploading videos at the moment because every time I upload onto YouTube, I find the minute the video goes live, I lose about a dozen subscribers. They just seem to knock them off automatically. I thought I was being paranoid or it was just a coincidence to begin with, but it's literally the minute you go live, you lose subscribers far too soon for people to have voluntarily unsubscribed because they don't like that particular video. And it seems to happen every single time. So the more you upload, ironically, the more viewers you lose. And if you just leave your videos up for a few days, people continue subscribing and you gain some. Honestly, I don't understand what YouTube is up to at the moment. Anyway, we will not be daunted because I have to show you a latest find. If you follow me on Instagram, and if you don't, why aren't you? At Miss Frankie Cat, of course. You will know if you follow me that on Sunday I found this Tom Ford Soleil Eye and Cheek palette. I was having to just look at the title there on the box. Totally unexpectedly, because I thought I'd missed out on these. There were two called Warm and Cool, released here in the UK at the tail end of last year. I'd seen all the hoo-ha-ha on Instagram and Facebook and so on and so forth with their release in the States. I really wanted one. I kept badgering my essays at Harrods and at Selfridges. They didn't tell me when they were coming in. I happened to go in and I was told that they sold out, you know, in a nanosecond or whatever. I never ever actually saw the Warm palette in person. I did see the Cool one when I was on holiday over the New Year in Holland and swatched it. And I don't know if it was to do with the particular palette they had out for us to sample. It was a very posh department store in Amsterdam, but I really didn't like the palette as it's swatched. It was very gritty and just a bit boring for the price. And I'm explaining all this because I know a lot of people really loved the Cool one, and I had thought I would when I'd seen it advertised. But anyway, I ended up turning my back on that and thought that was it. Now this one is called number 3, Solar Exposure. And looking at the, I don't know when this was released, they just had an odd one in Selfridges the other day when I went in. Looking at the photographs where I can, they all look pretty similar, to be honest. So I don't know what Tom Ford was playing at really and what the difference is. They're a whopping, I'm going to say £96, and I almost feel ill when I hear myself saying I've spent that much money on a makeup palette. Soon we're going to get to the stage where Tom Ford palettes cost as much as a handbag. Not a Tom Ford handbag, obviously, but a handbag. But I am quite pleased with it, I have to say. I have been using it non-stop since Sunday, not that that's very long. So, first of all, very aesthetically pleasing as a palette. Good and heavy. You're not going to want to travel too often with this. Certainly not slip it in your handbag. It weighs more than some of my handbags do. But very pretty to have on your dressing table. Now in the rectangular rather than these very retro 70s ones that we had for the first couple of Soleil palettes. I don't know which I prefer. I like them both. There's something very gorgeously tactile about this design. This is obviously a lot weightier, but I like this one too. And then what we're getting is essentially an eye quad, a blusher and a highlighter in fairly neutral, friendly tones for most people. I think the eye quad, the quantities are less than the standard quads. They certainly look smaller, although I can't see the individual weights on the packaging, but they're reasonably substantial. Now, what to say about this combo, because I know people have mixed feelings about it. First and foremost, the glitter is the best of the Tom Ford glitters I have ever come across. I'm not a fan of the glitter shades normally. I usually totally ignore them in the palettes because they don't work for me. But I have used this one twice and I really like it. You'll see there, when swatched, it's almost more of a metallic than a glitter. Whilst there is definite particles of glitter, it looks more like a kind of wet look on the eye with a kind of peachy shell-like undertone. Really, really pretty. I've worn it on top of other eye colours and on its own, and I'm very happy to say I have no glitter migration with this, which is really unusual for a Tom Ford glitter for me. So I really, really like that. But I guess you're not going to be terribly impressed if you never wear kind of glitter wet look. Then there's a very kind of basic, buttery soft, bit powdery, goldy cream. There we go. Not the most useful shade, particularly when you've got the highlight colour, but it's there to work with. Then just wipe the fingers a bit. What have I done with my cloth? There we go. Then a very Tom Ford typical mid-tone. You can see how much lighter its swatch is. Burnished taupe. Very pretty colour. Comes almost rose gold on me. Shows up very, very well. I know a complaint with this palette is that it's not very pigmented and the eyeshadows don't show up well. That one goes on very smooth, very long lasting, works very well. Absolutely love it. I did look what it was similar to in my stash. I thought it was going to be very similar to the famous Nude Dip. This is, of course, a different wet-dry finish. And if we just swatch that one, you can see how much kind of cooler and more silvery, but a very similar metallic-y finish, even though I don't think this is supposed to be a wet-dry formulation. But you can see the kind of finish, if not the tone, is very, very similar to the good old Nude Dip. I should just show you there the other more peachy one in Nude Dip, if you've got it, is there in comparison. So lighter, but not dissimilar to this one. I know a lot of you will have got Nude Dip if you are a Ford fan. And then there's this, it looks very dark, kind of grey-brown, but in fact is not super pigmented, almost matte as it gets with Tom Ford, but actually works out very well for me because it can buff out to just a faint grey, browny grey, a mousy grey really I'd say, which works well as a transition for me. But I can see why people might not love that because I don't think it's the best quality pigmentation or formulation. So these two, outstanding. These two, okay, but nothing to write home about, which I suppose is not a great hit rate when you're paying 96 quid. Although bear in mind a standard Tom Ford quad costs, I think, £63 now. Unbelievable, isn't it? Then I know another disappointment for many people is the blush, although I actually like it. It's a bit powdery there. A very, very pretty pink with a lot of gold in it. I don't know if you're seeing that. Definitely on the cheeks. You don't need a highlighter as well. It kind of shows gold over the pink, which makes me think immediately of a powder version of that which I'm always raving about, the famous Pink Sand. I mean, obviously you can see there, Pink Sand looks very much more pigmented, but it's got that, gold over the pink, which you can see very clearly there. Now, definitely more pigmented and a cooler toned pink, but you get the idea, very similar. When I actually pulled out my old Soleil palette, the second one I had, I don't know what this was called, Pink Glow, believe it or not. There you go. I always have difficulty getting into these. Slightly counterintuitive. There you go. I found that this colour up here, It's very, very similar, although I didn't remember it being as gold. And slightly more pigmented. A slightly warmer, more orangey version of this coral. So let's see if we can get them together. There you can see. So if you've got the pink glow, I will say that this one is quite similar, although I do think on the cheeks it looks much more true coral than this one, which is kind of pinker. But I like it a lot. But as I say, not hugely pigmented. I'm very fair-skinned. And then a powder highlighter. I haven't got a lot of powder highlighters. You know, to be honest, I could have done without this, given we've got this, because when you swatch it, very similar. A very nice sheen. It smooths out on the cheeks quite well, but I'm not sure I would really use it a lot with this one, so it's less good having it in the same palette, if you know what I mean. If you're a lazy girl like me, like to use just one palette at a time. So it's not the perfect palette by any means, and to be frank, at £96 it ought to be. But I do like it. I'm absolutely loving this shade here and the glitter, and I do quite like the blush. So for my purposes, it's a really, really pretty spring to summer palette, and I was very happy to get my hands on it, even though I slightly berate myself for so quickly plonking down all that money. So there we go. I don't know how many of you will be interested in trying to get this palette. I don't know how possible it is, because as I say, I wasn't expecting to see it. I don't know whether they're bringing out more. I was told by the sales associate in Selfridges when I was asking about the coming releases specifically. I know they're doing some of those eye duos with the glitter over the cream, and I've heard they've got some quite interesting cream colours coming out. They're expected the last week in April, so later this month. That's the story we're being told. But I have to say, Tom Ford releases in this country are very hit and miss, and you're really lucky if you just happen on one when they come in. So that's the skinny on the Tom Ford. Please give a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and until next time, bye for now.